Have you ever asked yourself this strange question, why do I understand English when I read or listen? But when it's time to actually speak, my brain feels like it freezes. Words you thought you knew vanish. Your tongue feels heavy, and inside your head there's this strange resistance, like your own mind is holding you back. It's not that you're lazy, it's not that you're not smart enough, and it's definitely not because English is impossible. It's because of something deeper. Something built into the way your brain works. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man, let's call him Arif. He grew up watching English movies, listening to English music, reading articles online. He understood most of it. But when he had to speak, whether in class or with a foreign friend, he froze. He once told me, "It feels like my brain is protecting me from embarrassment, like it doesn't want me to try." He wasn't wrong. That's exactly what our brain sometimes does. Your brain is designed to protect you. That's its number one job. When it senses danger, physical or emotional, it puts up walls. Now, speaking a foreign language might not be dangerous to your body, but your brain doesn't always know the difference between physical danger and social danger. If you feel nervous that people might laugh, that you might make a mistake, that you might sound strange, your brain interprets this as a threat. And what does it do? It resists. It slows you down. It says, "Don't do this. Stay safe." But safe in this case means silent. That's why you sometimes feel your mind going blank. That's why you sometimes know the word but can't bring it out. That's why you rehearse sentences in your head, but stumble when you actually speak. Your brain is trying to protect you from failure, but in doing so, it's keeping you from growing. Now, think about a child learning their first language. Do they resist speaking? No. They try, they babble. They make funny mistakes, and they laugh. Nobody expects them to be perfect, and their brain doesn't see speaking as dangerous. They don't have fear of judgment, not yet. But as we grow older, we start to fear mistakes. We start to fear looking foolish, and that fear is what builds the resistance. Let me give you another example. I knew a woman named Maria. She moved to London from Spain. She studied English for years in school, but when she got there, she avoided speaking. Even at the grocery store, she would point at things instead of saying them out loud. She once told me, "It's like my brain doesn't want me to open my mouth." But slowly, she trained herself. She started with little things, ordering coffee, asking for directions, talking to herself while cooking. And she discovered something surprising. The resistance didn't last forever. The more she pushed gently against it, the weaker it became. That's the secret. Your brain isn't your enemy. It's just cautious. It resists because it thinks speaking English is a risk. And the only way to train it otherwise is to prove, again and again, that speaking is safe, that mistakes are survivable, that people don't actually attack you when you say something wrong. Now, here's something fascinating from neuroscience. When you repeat a behavior, your brain builds connections, neural pathways. The first time you speak English, it feels like climbing a mountain. The second time, still difficult. But the more times you do it, the path becomes clearer, smoother, easier to walk. This is why daily small practice is more powerful than studying grammar for hours without speaking. You're literally rewiring your brain. Imagine your brain as a cautious guard dog. At first, it barks every time you step outside your comfort zone. But if you keep walking calmly, showing there's no danger, the dog relaxes. Soon, it doesn't bark anymore. That's how you train your brain to stop resisting English. I want you to picture this. You're in a conversation and you make a mistake. Your brain panics. Oh no, you failed. But instead of shrinking back, you smile, you correct yourself, or maybe you don't even bother correcting, you just keep going. That moment is powerful. You've just shown your brain that failure isn't deadly. That's how resistance weakens. And let's be honest, nobody cares about your mistakes as much as you do. People are more interested in your ideas, your stories, your energy. If you speak with confidence, even broken sentences sound charming. If you speak with fear, even perfect grammar feels shaky. Let me tell you about another learner I met, Jamal. He told me his biggest fear was sounding stupid when speaking English. I asked him, "What about when you hear someone speaking your language with mistakes? Do you think they're stupid?" He laughed and said, "Of course not. I think it's brave." Exactly. Other people think the same about you. The resistance is mostly inside your own head. So, how do you fix it? You don't fight the resistance with force. You don't scream at your brain to behave. Instead, you trick it. You make speaking so small, so safe, that your brain doesn't see it as a threat. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Record a short voice note. Ask a stranger one simple question. Whisper English sentences under your breath while walking. These little actions are like showing your guard dog that the world outside is not dangerous. Step by step, it learns to trust. And here's something beautiful. Once your brain starts trusting, it doesn't just stop resisting, it starts helping. Words flow more easily. Sentences connect faster. Confidence grows naturally. That's the moment when English stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like freedom. Now, imagine this. You're sitting in a cafe, maybe in Dhaka, maybe in Delhi, maybe in Sao Paulo, it doesn't matter where. You've been studying English for years. You order your tea or coffee in your own language, no problem. Then, suddenly, a tourist at the next table turns to you and asks in English, "Excuse me, do you know where the train station is?" At that moment, your brain doesn't think, "Oh, wonderful, a chance to practice." No, your brain thinks, art. We might embarrass ourselves. We might not find the right word. We might look foolish. And what does it do? It freezes you. You feel your face grow hot. Your heart speeds up. Your tongue feels like stone. This is not because you don't know English. Deep down, you've studied. You've memorized vocabulary. You've practiced grammar. The problem is not knowledge, it's resistance. Your brain is trying to shield you from that tiny chance of embarrassment. Now, let me take you into the science for a moment, but in simple words. Your brain has something like a fear center. It's called the amygdala. Whenever it senses a threat, it reacts fast. The funny thing is, it reacts even when the threat isn't real. Speaking in English isn't dangerous, but the amygdala doesn't know that. It just sees the possibility of judgment and yells. Stop. It's like when you see a rope in the dark and your brain thinks it's a snake. You jump, your heart races, even though there's no danger. That's what happens in your brain with English. But here's the good news. Your brain can be trained. Just like you can learn that a rope is not a snake, you can train your brain that speaking English is not a threat. Let me share a personal story. I once coached a young engineer named Ravi. Brilliant guy. He could explain complicated machines in his own language with total confidence. But when his boss asked him to give a short presentation in English, he almost fainted. His words disappeared. His hands shook. His voice dropped to a whisper. Later, he told me, "It feels like my brain wants me to disappear." We worked on something very small. Every day, Ravi had to speak just 2 English sentences out loud in front of a mirror. Nothing big, nothing scary. Sometimes it was as simple as, "Hello, I am Ravi. Today is Tuesday." Sometimes he described what he ate for lunch. At first, he felt silly. But after a week, he noticed something: the resistance was shrinking. His brain no longer screamed danger when he spoke those 2 sentences. Then we increased it. 5 sentences. A short story. A phone call with a friend. By the end of 3 months, Ravi gave that English presentation with confidence. Did he make mistakes? Yes. Did his colleagues laugh? No, they clapped. And I want you to notice something here. The brain didn't change overnight. It changed step by step through gentle repetition. Think of it like taming a wild horse. If you run at it with force, it runs away. But if you approach slowly, calmly, showing it that you're safe, one day the horse lets you ride. Your brain is that horse. Here's another story, this one about Sarah, a university student in Turkey. She loved English songs and movies, but she never spoke. One day, her professor asked her in class, "Sarah, what do you think about this topic?" She knew the answer in Turkish. She even knew some of the words in English, but her mouth refused to open. The resistance was so strong, she said nothing. After class, she cried. But then she decided to fight back, not by shouting at herself, not by memorizing more grammar, but by tricking her brain. She started keeping an English diary, but instead of writing silently, she spoke it aloud. Every night, she spoke 3 sentences about her day. She did it alone, so there was no fear of judgment. Over time, her brain learned, this is safe. A few weeks later, she answered a question in class, just 1 short answer. Her brain still resisted, but not as strongly. And that's the thing, resistance doesn't vanish all at once. It fades, like fog in the morning, slowly lifting until you can see clearly. I want you to pause here and imagine, what if the only thing stopping you from speaking English fluently isn't lack of skill, but this resistance? What if your brain is like a locked door, and the key isn't more grammar, more vocabulary, more textbooks, but simply showing the brain it's safe to open? This is why I always say practice is not about perfection. Practice is about building trust with your brain. Every small conversation, every mistake you survive, every word you say, even with shaky confidence, it's all evidence to your brain that English won't kill you. And over time, something magical happens. The brain flips its script. Instead of resisting English, it starts enjoying it. You find yourself laughing in conversations, telling stories, expressing emotions, not just translating words, but living in the language. That's the moment your resistance turns into momentum. Let's talk about perfectionism. Many learners think, I can't speak English until I get it perfectly right. But here's the secret. Perfectionism is one of the strongest fuel sources for resistance. Your brain hears this internal command: don't fail. Don't make mistakes. And what does a brain that fears failure do? It freezes, it hesitates, it avoids. I knew a student, Naila, who studied English for 5 years. Her vocabulary was strong, her grammar was solid, and she could understand almost everything she heard. But when she had to speak, her brain locked up. She told me, "If I don't say it perfectly, I'll look stupid." We worked on one small exercise. She had to say one imperfect sentence out loud every day, purposely imperfect. "I go yesterday park," she said. At first, she cringed. The critic screamed. But after a week, she began laughing at herself. And the most amazing thing, that tiny rebellion against perfection loosened her brain's grip. She began speaking more naturally. Here's the key takeaway: mistakes are not proof of failure. They are evidence of trying, and trying is the only way the brain learns that English is safe. Let's imagine this visually. Picture your brain like a cage. Inside is a small bird, your confidence. Every time you fear making a mistake, the bars feel stronger. But every time you speak English despite fear, you pry open a bar. The more you practice, the bigger the openings. One day, that bird stretches its wings freely, and the cage is barely noticeable. Now let's talk about memory. Sometimes you freeze because your brain struggles to retrieve words in real time. You know the words, but retrieving them under pressure is hard. That's normal. Even native speakers struggle with this sometimes. The trick is to practice speaking in real time, just like you practice reflexes in sports. Reading silently is not enough. Writing exercises are not enough. Speaking in front of someone, recording yourself, even talking to yourself while cooking, these small real time practices train your brain to access words faster and reduce resistance. Here's another story. Ahmed, a businessman, could write emails perfectly in English, but in meetings with international clients, he froze. He told me, "It's like my mouth forgets what my brain knows." So we introduced a simple daily drill. He had to answer a simple question in English like, "What did you eat for breakfast?" But he had only 10 seconds to answer. At first, he stumbled, hesitated, and forgot words. After 2 months, he could speak in full sentences spontaneously. His resistance faded because his brain learned that fast recall was safe and that even mistakes were not deadly. Let's do a little imagination exercise together. Picture a scenario. You're at a social gathering. Someone asks you a question in English. Your brain immediately says, "Danger. You'll embarrass yourself." But this time, you pause and visualize. It's just a conversation. I can handle mistakes. Nobody is judging me. You answer slowly, deliberately. Maybe you make a small mistake. Maybe you correct yourself. Notice your brain doesn't explode. It begins to trust you. This is the moment you start rewiring resistance. Here's another truth. Resistance often grows stronger when you compare yourself to others. You hear someone speaking fluently, and your brain says, "See, I'm not ready yet." But the truth is, everyone's brain is unique, and everyone's path is different. Your brain is learning in its own rhythm. The only person you need to compare yourself to is yesterday's you. Every sentence you speak, every tiny victory over hesitation is proof of progress. Let me tell you about Lena. She was terrified of speaking English because she compared herself to a cousin who was fluent. Every sentence felt like a test, But then she started speaking to a small group of supportive friends. She made mistakes. She laughed at mistakes. And slowly, her brain learned speaking English does not equal danger. After a few months, her fluency skyrocketed not because she suddenly became perfect, but because her brain stopped resisting. And now, here's the beauty. Once the brain stops resisting, it starts helping. You find words faster. Sentences flow naturally. You begin thinking in English instead of translating. Confidence grows almost automatically. Speaking becomes less about fighting your brain and more about cooperating with it. Finally, let's talk about emotions. Resistance is amplified by stress, anxiety, fear of judgment, and self-doubt. The more you reduce emotional pressure, the easier it becomes to speak. Deep breaths, small steps, positive self-talk, and celebrating tiny victories all work like magic. They tell your brain, it's safe, I'm okay, I can do this. And each time your brain learns that, the resistance grows weaker. Now, let's imagine another scenario. You're in a classroom, and the teacher asks you to answer a question in English. You know the answer in your head, but the words refuse to come. Your brain is shouting, danger, don't speak. You might look foolish, and your body reacts. The heart beats faster, your hands sweat, your mouth feels dry. Here's the thing, your brain isn't punishing you. It's trying to protect you. That's what brains do, they prioritize survival. But speaking English isn't survival, it's growth. So your job is to convince your brain that it's safe to grow. And you do that slowly, gently, one step at a time. Let me tell you a story about Farhan. He had a similar problem. He was brilliant at reading English books, listening to podcasts, and writing essays. But when he tried speaking in meetings or with friends, he would panic. His first attempt at speaking in public led to a complete freeze. He told me, it's like my brain has a wall. I can see the words inside, but they won't come out. We started very small. Just 2 minutes of speaking English aloud, every day, talking about what he did yesterday, what he ate, or even describing his room. His first few attempts were shaky. He made mistakes, stuttered, even laughed nervously. But the key was consistency. Every day he repeated this exercise. Slowly the wall in his brain started to crumble. Here's the important insight. Resistance doesn't disappear instantly. It fades gradually. Each attempt at speaking is like chipping away at a stone wall. Every sentence you speak, no matter how imperfect, weakens the resistance a little more. And over time, you notice something magical. Your brain starts cooperating instead of fighting. Let's talk about small, practical ways to do this. One technique is what I call micro speaking challenges. Start with sentences you know. Speak them aloud, even if no one is listening. Record yourself. Repeat. Then move to 2-sentence responses. Then short paragraphs. Push the difficulty gently. Your brain needs proof speaking English is safe. Mistakes are survivable, and you can do it. Another exercise is role-playing real-life situations. Imagine you're at a cafe, a shop, or a train station. What would you say in English? Speak it out loud. Pretend you're talking to someone. Make mistakes on purpose if you have to. The more you simulate real conversations, the more your brain learns. I can handle this. And here's an important tip. Combine speaking practice with emotion control. Stress amplifies resistance. Deep breaths, slow speaking, smiling while talking, and positive self Talk all signal your brain that you are safe. The calmer your body, the easier your words flow. Let me share another story. Sarah, a university student, hated speaking English in class. Every time the professor asked her a question, she panicked. But she started a small ritual before class. She closed her eyes, took 3 deep breaths, and whispered to herself, "It's okay to make mistakes. I am learning." That tiny ritual calmed her, amygdala, the brain's fear center, and after a few weeks, she started answering questions more confidently. She didn't suddenly become perfect. She simply trained her brain not to resist. Now, think about something fascinating. Your brain loves patterns. It prefers repetition, predictability, and gradual exposure. That's why reading and writing alone aren't enough. Listening alone isn't enough. Your brain needs speaking experience, small, safe, repeated experiences, so it learns that English is not a threat. Here's a visualization exercise you can try. Imagine your brain as a cautious puppy. Every time you speak English, you throw it a treat. Every time you survive a mistake, it wags its tail a little more. Over time, the puppy trusts you. It stops barking at every new word. It starts enjoying the process. That's exactly how you train your brain to stop resisting. And here's the key. Resistance is not your failure. It's your brain trying to protect you. You are not broken. You are learning. Every time you speak, you chip away at that resistance. Every mistake, every pause, every imperfect sentence is proof of courage. Another story. Ahmed, a young engineer, hated speaking English during team meetings. His brain froze every time someone asked him to explain a project. We started a simple plans each day. He had to explain one small idea in English to himself, then to a friend, then to a small group. Week by week, his sentences got smoother. His brain learned that speaking wasn't dangerous. Eventually, he gave a full presentation in English with confidence. Not because he memorized words, but because he trained his brain to cooperate instead of resist. And here's a truth most learners overlook. Your brain doesn't need perfection. It needs experience, repetition, and reassurance. It doesn't want grammar books. It wants proof that speaking is safe and manageable. That's why micro-practice, role, playing, and positive self-talk are so effective. They give your brain exactly what it craves. Now, let's explore why some learners freeze even after years of study. It's not about intelligence, vocabulary, or grammar. It's about habit and conditioning. Your brain is like a muscle. It learns patterns. If every time you tried to speak English in the past, you felt embarrassed, judged, or nervous, your brain formed a habit. Speaking English ducks a danger. Habits are powerful. Once established, the brain resists breaking them, even if you know English perfectly. Let me tell you a story about Reena, a student from Bangladesh. She was excellent in reading and writing, but terrified to speak. One time in class, she tried to answer a simple question. She forgot a word and stumbled. The teacher corrected her loudly. That moment burned into her memory. Her brain said, "If I speak, I could get hurt emotionally." For years, that memory blocked her. The way to fix it is gentle reconditioning. You need to create new, safe experiences that replace the old fear. Start extremely small. Reena began by recording herself speaking one sentence about her day, then 2 sentences, then short paragraphs. No one listened except her. Her brain learned, oh, this is safe. Mistakes aren't dangerous. Slowly, she added listening and repeating, then speaking to one friend, then class participation. Each small step rewired her brain, breaking old fear patterns. Here's a principle I want you to understand. Resistance is not a flaw, it's a signal. It shows you where your brain is holding old fears. And signals are helpful. They tell you where to focus your practice. Every time you notice hesitation, stuttering, freezing, or panic, you have a roadmap. That's the exact spot where you need gentle, repeated exposure. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine your brain has two doors. One door is labeled fear of mistakes. The other is confidence through experience. Every time you try speaking English, even imperfectly, you walk through the second door. Your brain registers. No danger here. Progress is happening. Eventually, the fear door fades into the background. Now, let's talk about the power of mental rehearsal. Before speaking, visualize yourself in a scenario ordering food, asking for directions, giving a short talk. Imagine your voice flowing naturally, your words connecting, your brain calm. Research shows that mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as real practice. Your brain begins to accept, this is familiar, this is safe, this is especially effective before real conversations, presentations, or interviews. Let's bring in another story. Jamal, a student from Egypt, hated public speaking in English. We combined two things: micro, speaking exercises, and visualization. Each morning, he would imagine himself in a meeting, speaking confidently, and receiving smiles and nods. Each night, he would record a short voice note of his day in English. Within a month, his brain no longer froze in real meetings. The resistance weakened because he created repeated, safe experiences in both mind and body. Here's a key insight for your listeners: small wins compound. One sentence today, two sentences tomorrow, a short conversation next week, they all add up. The brain doesn't need perfection, it needs consistent reinforcement. That's why trying is far more powerful than avoiding. Let's do a small interactive exercise together. Pick a scenario you fear in English. Maybe it's ordering at a cafe. Maybe introducing yourself. Now, speak it aloud right now, even if it's just to yourself. Don't worry about mistakes. Feel the words leaving your mouth. Notice your body. Notice the critic. Then smile, because you just gave your brain a tiny proof. I survived. I can do this. And one more thing's resistance can be reduced by reframing mistakes. Instead of thinking, I messed up, tell yourself, I just learned something. Instead of thinking, I'll embarrass myself, think, this is practice for fluency. Every shift in mindset is a gentle signal to your brain. Speaking English is safe. Mistakes are helpful. I want you to imagine your brain again like a cautious puppy. Every time you speak English, you give it a treat. Every time you laugh at a mistake, you give it another treat. Every time you visualize a successful conversation, another treat. The more treats, the more the puppy trusts you. The more the puppy trusts you, the more effortlessly words flow. And here's the beautiful part: once the resistance fades, you don't just speak English. You think in English. You dream in English. You start to see the world through English sentences and ideas. Your brain has fully cooperated, and the fear that once stopped you is now background noise, barely noticeable. Now, let's talk about one final piece: momentum. Once your brain starts trusting that speaking English is safe, every small success builds on the last. One sentence leads to two. Two sentences lead to a short story. A short story leads to a conversation. Slowly, you notice something amazing. The resistance that once felt impossible now barely whispers. Your brain has learned that you are capable, that mistakes are harmless, that speaking English is not only safe, it can be enjoyable. Let me share one last story. Lila, a young professional, was terrified of speaking English in meetings. Every sentence felt like walking across a tightrope. We started with micro, practiced 2 sentences a day, recording herself, speaking to a mirror, then short conversations with a friend, then group discussions. 6 months later, she led a meeting entirely in English. Her brain, which once screamed danger, now supported her every word. She told me, "I feel like I've unlocked a new part of myself." That's the power of understanding your brain. Resistance is not a barrier, it's a guide. Every hesitation, every stutter, every pause is telling you exactly where to focus your practice. You don't need to fight it with frustration or self-criticism. You need to train it gently, consistently, and safely. So here's the takeaway: your brain resists speaking English because it sees potential social danger in mistakes. Resistance is normal, it is not your failure. It is your brain trying to protect you. The only way to overcome it is through repeated, safe, and gradual speaking practice. Micro practice, visualization, positive self-talk, and reframing mistakes all help your brain learn that English is safe and enjoyable. Over time, resistance fades, confidence grows, and speaking English becomes effortless. Remember, the journey isn't about perfection. It's about showing up every day, saying the words, making mistakes, learning, and celebrating tiny victories. Every word you speak chips away at the fear. Every sentence you say builds trust between your brain and yourself. So the next time your brain hesitates, your tongue freezes, or your critic whispers, smile. Take a deep breath. Speak anyway. The resistance is not stopping you, it's teaching you. And every time you speak, you are winning. You are rewiring your brain. You are growing. You are becoming fluent. Speaking English is not a fight against your brain. It's a partnership. And once your brain trusts you, there's nothing it can't do with you. You've taken the first step by listening to this episode. The next step, speaking aloud, practicing daily, embracing mistakes, will take you even further. Your brain will follow. And soon, English won't feel like a challenge anymore. It will feel like a natural, powerful part of who you are.